Well, hello, I am Matt Williamson. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Live Casino, and I am recording this, as has been the case all year, between the late games and the Sunday Nighter. Folks, football season is here, and Live Casino is where FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sports betting app, comes to life. Step up and place your bets at our self-service kiosk or with a sportsbook representative. Then cheer on your team and catch every heart-pounding moment of action on our huge 40-foot video wall. Bet, watch, and win at Live Casino Pittsburgh, Route 30 at the Westmoreland Mall. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Unfortunately for mine and your viewing pleasure, I was hoping Lions-Packers would be a play-in playoff game, but the Lions have been eliminated. That's not what you're here to listen to, because the Steelers have been eliminated too, which gives me mixed feelings because, boy, I think this offseason and all of our podcasts going forward are going to be much more positive than negative. A lot to get excited about with this team. You win 7 out of 9. You have a young offense, rookie quarterback, but you didn't get the breaks you needed to get into the dance, and so be it. So, as always, I have a bunch of notes here. It'll be kind of all over the place, but these were my pregame notes. Which Watson do we see? You know, is he going to look like more and more like the Texans Watson? Time to throw. If you didn't listen last week, he's at the bottom of the league in terms of holding the ball. He had to go further that way in this game. He had the ball forever. I can't imagine what his average time to throw in this game. And he's also been going, again, these are going into the game. He's been very bad under pressure. Well, a lot of these things held up. And yeah, he was hard to get on the ground. He made some plays. But all in all, his style of quarterbacking in this game is hard to live with. I mean, a lot of changes need to be made for him. You can't hold the ball that long. Steelers pass rush to me is interesting in that I do think there were times when they were happy just keeping him in the pocket, but it resulted in very long time to throws. And then there were times they just couldn't get him on the ground. And then there were 7 instances where they sacked him. So the pass rush was good, but it was also mixed in a way. Watson was okay, but not great. We're not going to spend so much time on the Brownies. No long runs was a huge key for me when Cleveland had the ball. For most part, that worked out fine. Bitonio versus Cam. People around here probably don't understand how good Bitonio is. He's a top 2 or 3 left guard in the league. I mean, he's a great player. Cam did pretty well today, though, obviously. Jack Conklin being out at right tackle was problematic for the Browns, but it was something I was noting. What effect does that have on the game? When the Steelers had the ball, a couple things. Would they stick with the run game, especially up the middle? I mean, the Browns' defensive front, especially with Clowney out, with the exception of Garrett, that front 7 is horrendous. I also questioned, going into this game, what will the Browns' late game incentives to stop the run really be? I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, we want to, knock off the Steelers. Of course, they're trying hard, but you might be a little less eager to stop Najee Harris in the fourth quarter. And some of that obviously showed up. Kenny, I just put no turnovers. This one made me crazy, and it showed up a few times, but again, these are pre-game notes. Double Garrett, always on passing plays. There were several where they just left Dan Moore alone on Garrett on 3rd and 8. Again, they have one good player in the front 7, and he's a tremendous player, and they moved him around, but there were several instances, a couple of them resulted in bad things, where they just left Dan Moore alone on Myles Garrett. What are you doing? This is something I'm going to look into, and it's going to be more of a season-long project, but what percentage of the Steelers' first downs that they get on offense come on third downs? Because like I said, they're tremendous converting on third downs, but I don't think that's sustainable. These are more off-season topics. But it was, again, true today. They were in 3rd and long a ton. Give Pickett credit. I mean, they're converting them. It's just a hard way to live, and they just rarely get first downs on 1st and 2nd down, which makes me crazy and is just a hard way to live. This is a very good Browns secondary. The front 7's terrible right now, but the secondary's good. But again, pre-game notes, don't shy away. They didn't. I mean, they didn't. I didn't think they backed off in terms of didn't go after anybody. Ward got hurt in this game as well. How about some play action? Maybe, against some backup linebackers. Again, this is first blush. I have not watched the second time. I saw very little play action. I don't understand that. And this makes me crazy too. Is shots on second and short, third and short, especially in situations on third and short when you're probably going to go for it anyway on fourth. So what I'm saying is when you have 2 downs to play with, it's second and 2, it's third and 3, they're third and 1 at midfield, and before you snap the ball on third down, you're going to go for it on fourth down. Take shots there. Don't just be happy getting the first down with Kenny diving for doing a great quarterback sneak and getting a yard. Like, a big problem with their lack of explosives are they don't take advantage of down and distance to take shots. And that just doesn't mean throw a go route down the sideline. I also thought the kickers would be a big factor in this game. I was wrong. They hardly mattered at all. I don't have a ton of notes in game. I have more for post game, more for going through, throughout the week here. Obviously, they had an 11-play drive, the Steelers, which, again, this is one of the things I'm going to harp on all offseason. You can't live with 10-play drives. It's just a tough way to live. It's difficult to maintain. In this instance, there were some, situations that were extenuating. It's 11-play drive. It ends up with 0 points with Najee going over the top and fumbling when, frankly, he scored 2 plays before that. Should Tomlin have challenged? Yes, and that's very easy to say after Najee, who's very, very sure-handed, ended up fumbling that ball. At the time, I thought, challenge it. This team doesn't score points. If this challenge is the difference between 7 or 3 or whatever, if it's going to be in your favor, just do it. But I'm not going to totally kill Tomlin for not, because you got 2nd and 1 on like the 1-foot line. You're probably going to score anyways. It's a long game. You're expecting a close to the vest type of game, as all Steeler games are. Your tight ends are valuable. It didn't go well, but to me, this is more of an example, not necessarily of Tomlin being bad with his challenges, which I don't think he's good at, but this is just a glaring example of when you live in 10-play plus drive situations in order to generate points, you're walking a razor's edge because you just need one little bad thing to go wrong because you can't make up for it with explosions. Again, I don't have a ton of notes through here. I'll have more for you tomorrow. Made some notes. It sure looked like the Browns were playing a lot of man-to-man. Pickens is getting better in this regard, but Deontay's more the man beater, and he got more targets. It didn't result in much production. I kept making this note. Watson's holding the ball forever. And I really was keen to that going in because he was at the bottom of the league in time to throw coming into this game. And his worst game in terms of time to throw was the week before against Washington. So he's getting worse every week with this. Made some plays and made people miss, but it's like, what is going on here? It's just a really rough situation for them, not for the Steelers. We are, what point of it was, I'm trying to think where I'm at in the game here, but it was late in the game where it was right on the hold on Spillane, automatic first down. That was the Browns' first offensive play on the Steelers side of the field. Yikes. And then that drive results in a Njoku touchdown. And my note for that one was yet another unbelievably long developing play. Tick tock, tick tock. It finally finds Njoku open. So later, next drive, it's 3rd and 5. Deontay Johnson's flying down on a go route. They run so many go routes. Defensive pass interference, which I thought was a very bad call, and I would not have called it. But I didn't realize that Deontay Johnson has now drawn more defensive pass interference calls than any player in the league. So I know Deontay's in the doghouse. This wasn't his finest showing. He's been remarkably unlucky with the touchdowns and making big plays but getting dragged down on a DPI or things like that. But we'll get to more of him, I'm sure. Here's a 3rd and 1 right after that. Pickett ad-libs under a lot of pressure by Garrett. Gets it to Warren, not how the play was designed. He converts. And then I just make the bullet. Why isn't anyone helping more on this play? This is 3rd and 1. They got one good dude and you're letting him wreck it. I just don't understand that. So here's another one. Late in the half, 2nd and 10. Back shoulder throw to Pickens down the field. Very nicely done. Not to get super creative off it, but then he does it again, almost the exact same throw, the exact same play call. Why no review? I mean, I think Pickens makes that catch. Instead, they called a timeout. I assume it, couldn't review it because it was under 2 minutes, but I was a little confused with that whole turn of events. Were they hoping that the refs would review it, or what was going on there? So, okay, halftime, as we do with halftime stats at this point, they're not particularly telling, to be honest with you. Pickett was 6 for 15 for 114 yards, 1 touch, no picks. Watson was 11 for 17 for 138, 1 of each. Najee was 9 for 24, 63 total rushing yards by the Steelers at half. Chubb was 6 for 39. They had 56 total rushing yards by the Brownies. Time of possession was pretty equal, 15:48 for the Steelers, 14:12 for Cleveland. Yards per play, 5.4 for the Steelers, 6.6 for the Brownies. Total plays, Pittsburgh 33, Cleveland 29. First downs, 10-9 in the Steelers' favor. Third downs, Pittsburgh was 500 yet again, 4 for 8. Cleveland was also 500, 3 for 6. Penalties, Pittsburgh only had 3 for 15. Cleveland had 5 for 39. Each had a turnover. I was a little shocked that the Browns at this point, of their 28 first half plays, 17 were throws, 11 were runs. I don't think that was particularly smart by them, to be honest with you. And at this point, Kareem Hunt was questionable to return. I don't think he did return I kind of lost sight of it, but I don't remember seeing him after that. And then the second half starts. And I start making notes like Najee is just gouging the Browns at this point. Is Cleveland still interested in stopping the run? It's their last half of football for the year. And then it's 3rd and 9, and I write before the play starts, is this going to be a red zone stall? Just had that feeling. We've seen a lot of that. Yup, Garrett, sack, one-on-one with Moore. Seriously, 13-7. It's crazy to me. It's 3rd and 9 in the red zone. One of the most important plays of the game. The whole world knows you're going to throw, and they leave Garrett one-on-one on Moore. I mean, if you're going to have the Gentrys of the world on the field, have them help. Again, they start the next drive at the 25. Harris and the O-line are just utterly dominating. Big holes. He's running like a different player. He's running like the player we've seen lately, maybe if not better. Browns don't want a whole lot to do with it. Third quarter ends. At this point, the Browns have 6 yards of total offense in the second half at the end of the third quarter. Then you see the Freiermuth injury. That's something we're going to have to talk about down the road, but didn't look good. And that was probably the end of my notes. And frankly, the last half hour of the game, I was watching Dolphins and the other games as much as I was the Steelers, trying to balance that because it was pretty well in hand. So we will take a quick break and we'll go over the final stats and a handful of my notes. All right, I have returned. For the game, Kenny was 13 of 29, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Not bad, but I keep saying this about this guy, and we'll talk more Pickett tomorrow, but he just doesn't put up any numbers. I mean, it's crazy. He only completed 13 passes, and he missed a lot of throws. This was not his best game. But even on his best games, I always look down at the box score and I'm like, he still has no numbers. It's mind-boggling because there's no explosion. Watson ended up 19 for 29 for 230, 2 of each. Harris, he's another one. Really good game by Najee. I've been praising him this whole podcast. At 23 carries for 84 yards, but for 3.7 yards a carry. That's terrible. 3.7, 148 rushing yards for the team. His box score and Kenny's box score always looks worse than their tape. And it's just such a trend, I can't not talk about it. Meanwhile, Chubb, who's maybe the best ball carrier in the league, he was fine this game. He wasn't tremendous. He was pretty darn good. He had 12 carries for 77. Should have had more. But he's averaging 6.4 yards per carry. I bet that shocks you, because it shocked me when I watched it, or when I looked at the final stats. I'm like, Chubb averaged 6.4 per carry. Najee averaged 3.7 per carry. Who had the better game? I'm not certain, but yards per carry is pretty indicative. And they're like night and day. He also caught 5 passes, Chubb. He was their most targeted player, and he's not much of a receiver. They had 134 yards rushing total. At the end, no Steeler pass catcher had more than 3 catches, but 10 targets for Johnson, 6 for Pickens. Cooper only had 3 targets, Amari, and 1 big play. He scared me because number 1 receivers, and maybe this is the first half of the season thing, have ripped up the Steelers, but it's been a while. 7 Steelers sacks, and could have been a ton more. 2.5 by Highsmith, 2 by Cam. Only 1 Brown sack in the final box score, but Garrett was much more disruptive than that, and his 1 sack we did go over. First downs, 23-18 in the Steelers' favor. Third down conversions. The Steelers again were over 50%. 9 for 15. That's tremendous, and many of them were third and longs, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12s. And I'm not saying it's fluky, and I will say Kenny has a lot to do with it, but living a life where you have to convert more than 50% of your third downs is not sustainable. The league has shown us this year after year. That is not sustainable. But they've basically been doing it now for 2 months, which is remarkable and impressive. The Brownies were 5 of 12 on third downs. Steelers ran 67 plays opposed to 58. Yards per play, Cleveland bettered them 5-3 to 5-0, but that narrowed quite a bit in the second half. Penalties, and was all said and done, only 4 for 20 for the Steelers. You'll take that all day long. 9 Browns penalties, only for 65 yards, but 9's too many. Time of possession was almost equal. Steelers were just under 31. Browns were just over 29. We've talked about this a lot. I just have to throw it out there because it's crazy to me. So odd to lead the league in interceptions, but have the fewest fumble recoveries in the league. It's just an anomaly. I would much rather it be that way than the opposite. Turnovers, fumble recoveries, fumbles in general are much more random. So that's the better side of things. I wanted to mention the refs too. I didn't think they had a good game at all. That Cam call was abysmal, but they made up for it because Ogunjobi's sack was dragging Watson down by his face mask. I don't know how you missed that. I thought a lot of their defensive pass interference stuff was wrong, either called and shouldn't been, but way more often could and should have. They missed Najee scoring as well. I thought this was a terrible game by the refs. And I think the better team won. I'm not saying that's the reason Steelers won or even the playing field. Steelers got screwed. It was just not a good performance by the people in charge and the white and black. So these are a couple of the next-gen stats I got off NFL.com. Pittsburgh got after Watson all afternoon, recording a quarterback pressure percentage of 44.4%. That means every time he dropped back, he was pressured 44% of the time. That's 10% higher than Watson's average pressure faced between weeks 13 and 17. He took over in week 17. This was 10% higher than what he's used to being pressured at, which is also a pretty high number. You obviously know this, but congrats to Coach Tomlin. He's finished each of his first 16 seasons as an NFL head coach with a winning percentage of 500 or better. The longest such streak to start a career by any head coach in NFL history. And the Steelers organization has gone 19 seasons without a losing record, which ties the second longest streak without a losing season in NFL history. I'm curious who's number 1. I think it's like in the 50s. It's like the Hallis Bears or something like that. But that's a pretty remarkable streak. That's a lot of years. A couple other nuggets I pulled off of Pro Football Focus. So Deshaun Watson took 8 sacks. The official box score had him at 7, whatever. And was charged with 3 turnover-worthy plays and 0 big-time throws against the Steelers. Pending review, that will leave him with just 3 big-time throws and 8 turnover-worthy plays this whole season. That's awful. That's really bad. And I didn't think he was horrendous in this game. It's just, oh, man. Steelers corners deserve a lot of credit to me. The starters on the outside of corner gave up very little against Watson and the Browns. As a unit, they were targeted 5 times and allowed just 2 receptions. Levi Wallace had as many interceptions as he has targets. And James Pierre and Cameron Sutton combined for more forced incompletions, 2, than receptions allowed when lined up outside. So the outside work of the corners was spectacular in this game. They do a thing called Rookie Spotlight. The only 3 Steelers players on offense with at least 3 receptions were all rookies: Pickens, Hayward, Warren. Hayward's 25 offensive snaps were his second most of the season, and he brought in both of his contested targets against the Browns. I've been saying all along, more Hayward the better. I think everyone's catching on, but part of it also is Freiermuth got hurt. Offensive, here's backing up what I was saying for much of this podcast. Myles Garrett may have finished with only 1 sack and 3 total pressures, but that undersells his performance against Dan Moore Jr. The second-year left tackle was charged with 3 pressures allowed and 3 additional losses that didn't result in a pressure, per Pro Football Focus's, first analysis. They didn't help him enough. I don't get that. I'm not saying Moore is a great player or a terrible player. I think we know what he is. You leave him alone against Myles Garrett, it's going to go badly. So a couple, ups, sock ups or thumbs up: Najee, Pickens, Hayward, the entire O-line. I mean, really, really well done. Opening a lot of big holes, keeping Kenny pretty clean as well when they don't leave Moore alone on Garrett. The interceptions by KZ and Wallace, those interceptions turned into 10 points. That's very different than earlier in the season. The Tomlin streak is a thumbs up, no doubt. The outside corner play that we just referenced, thumbs up. I'm sure there's plenty more. Down, I think you have to mention Deontay. I mean, we saw some drops here. They tried to get him a touchdown. He's just allergic to the end zone this year. I mean, he beats that dude on a slant, and Myles Garrett bats the ball down. It's like you're just snake bitten this year. But the drops were poor. I'm going to say stock down. Tackling Watson, getting him on the ground. Matt, they had 7 sacks. Well, it could have been 12 by the way it felt. They had a hard time tackling him. He was very elusive. And the Browns left tackle, Jarek Wills, who I think is a higher end player, he got work today. So usually I don't do a lot of thumbs up, thumbs down to the opponents until the next day. But boy, that's a foundational piece for the Browns, and Highsmith worked him. So there you have it. No playoffs for the Steelers, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm not saying they would have went far, but it would have been more of a fun week, that's for sure. The Bears end up with the first overall pick, which gives the Steelers the 32nd pick. Remember, there was only 31 picks in the draft. I don't have it in front of me. I'm going to guess the Steelers are going to pick 17, 18, 19, right outside that 20 range where the playoff teams are. So you're going to end up with 3 picks in the top 50, give or take. So this is going to be a fun offseason. So that part of it I'm excited to really dig into. And we'll talk more about this game tomorrow. Take care. Over and out.